Now's the time for a great deal on a new Honda. It's time to take an adventure with rugged capability and commanding style. Check out the Honda Ridgeline, Pilot, or CR-V. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 3.99% APR on a 2025 Pilot, a 1.99% APR on a 2025 Ridgeline, or a 2.99% APR on a 2025 CR-V.
See dealer for financing details.
It's starting to sound like spring, but it's not official till you've lit up the grill with Kingsford Original Charcoal. This time of year, as we break in the backyard with friends and family, everything tastes better cooked with authentic wood-fired barbecue flavor. Thanks to Kingsford. Welcome, spring. Visit Kingsford.com for charcoal and more from America's grilling expert.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in. Friday morning, April 25th. We're back. Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your Falcons host, Kyle Borganoni, and I'm joined, as always, by Matthew. Dang it, your team's smart bets.
I love that the Falcons are the talking point. Well, I guess that's not really true. The Travis Hunter trade is the talking point of round one of the draft. But I love that when the trade went through, and we'll talk about it when we get to the end of the first round. When the trade went through, it's like, oh, the Falcons are back on the clock. You know, here's the trade. Your immediate response, like in Slack and everything, you're like, guys, please don't do this to me again. Like, what stupid pick are we about to make? And I love that that's just the first response. Whereas when I see Howie Roseman made a trade, I was like, oh, baby, here we go. Because I trust Howie with everything. So, yeah, we'll talk about the whole first round. It was a fun night. Not as many trades as I think the general media would have portrayed, or at least they suggested. And shocker, that always happens. But some surprises, some chalk, and a lot of everything in between. So, yeah, fun night, man. It was a good night for round one.
We're going to give our round one reactions, and maybe this is going to be a little different than some of the podcasts, some of the fluff out there. You know, later today, the guys are doing a live stream. I mean, what could be more farty than those three recapping the first round? We're going to actually try to give a betting perspective, and really, all the shows are great today. Everybody's giving reactions, but I think what we want to do is walk through the process of, here were some of our thoughts over the last couple of months. Here's what I talked about on the pod. Here's what we gave out in the DFS Pass and in our Discord, and walk through the first round. So the goal for us is to kind of just be two guys the morning after the podcast, just talking ball.
Drinking coffee. I'm a little tired, not going to lie. I stayed up late. I had to see the Eagles pick. But yeah, just talking ball, reacting. We will not have like definitive takes of like this was good or this was bad right away. And that's okay, right? Like I think the thing that annoys me on a Friday morning or Thursday night, like immediately after the draft, is that people expect you to have a definitive opinion of like, this is exactly how it's going to go. We're hours away from the event just happening. Like nobody actually knows. Like you got to sit down and kind of take a step back. So we'll talk about some of that. But yeah, man, I'm excited for this show. It's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, draft grades will not happen on this show at all. But yeah, I mean, there's parts as a biased fan just to say we are so smart. We are geniuses right now. And I will say before, we go into Falcon stuff, I held my breath on both of our picks because there was a real percentage chance that we took Shadur Sanders. Like I'm genuinely being honest. Like I was terrified. I'm like, I hate that this is even a possibility.
If that would have happened, I mean, just for the sake of this show and everything else with our brand and our company, that would have been incredible. So I'm a little upset that the Falcons did somewhat of a sensible thing. But that would have been just so good 1 year after the Penix pick.
I was talking to my brother and I basically said, hey man, we've done a lot for this team. You and I have. The Braves are great. You can always trust the Braves as just being part of your life. But I said, if we take Sanders here at 15, and then when we trade him, I was like, if this happens, let's just quit. Let's not do this to ourselves anymore.
I wouldn't have blamed you at all.
We were like, what if we just like root for SEC players, like players we like in college football that we've always loved in the NFL, and then just move on from this pain. But guess what? I'm back, baby. I am back. We're there. So we'll give our reactions. We'll play a little game at the very end. But at the top, I needed to make sure that we mentioned how well the DFS Pass did. If you're one of those people that have the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus, it included is the DFS Pass, which has all of our stuff in season, has the optimizer, but the player props is something that I think a lot of people have grown to love and have been very successful the last year. So Betz, give us a little update before we go through the first round of how we did with our props.
It was an awesome night, man. These are kind of tricky because a lot of the stuff that we played, were plus 200 or longer. So generally speaking, not like a regular season player prop if you're talking about rushing yards or something like that. Like that's stuff we play for one unit all the time kind of thing. For these, depending on how likely or not the bet is to hit, we play them for different juice. But like I went through this morning and calculated, if you would have played everything for just one unit straight up, you would have been up about 9 to 10 units depending on kind of the juice that you got, the exact odds you got. So awesome night. Lots of good reads I thought we had in terms of how to approach this specific draft, where we kind of acknowledged, I think a week or two ago, like it seems very uncertain how this could go. So let's be careful about laying a lot of juice in markets that we don't feel confident in, and let's throw some long shots and kind of hope that some of these hit. The one that was awesome, I thought, was the Emeka Egbuka, second wide receiver. We got that at plus 750. That was huge for us. We also had the under 28.5 or 29.5 on his draft position. We'll talk about that landing spot with the Bucks that came out of nowhere, but that was really fun. And hat tip to you as well. You were not early on Will Campbell first O-line, but when it became clear that the Patriots were locked in on Will Campbell, you were like, hey man, minus 220 or minus 240, whatever it was. It's not enough. Let's take it. And I was a little hesitant, but you talked us into it. So yeah, it was a good night, man. Obviously we didn't hit all of them, and we acknowledge that that's going to happen. Kelvin Banks, 7th overall, I thought maybe there was a chance. When Jets you at 6, I thought there was a chance. But I think we were in the right directionally accurate on a lot of things. And in this specific type of event to bet on, if you do that enough over the years, you will hit some of those longer shots. But obviously, they're long shots for a reason.
The Kelvin Banks one is funny because a lot of times part of I forget like what we gave out, what we talked about on the podcast, and then what you and I DM'd. There's this blur of like, did we make this official? Did we not? And so Kelvin Banks, I realized in our conversation, you and I really liked him at a top 10 bet, but we never actually made that bet.
We talked about it on the show, but yeah, I stuck with 7th overall, that was silly in hindsight. Like, I mean, the play itself was good because of the offensive line connections with the Jets. But yeah, you were like, I think on our show, it was like plus 460. And you're like, if you just want to play it safe and just say you go somewhere in there, that would have been nice. So yeah, kind of kicking myself on that one, but overall, can't complain.
Also want to give you a little update. Last week, we talked about a little Chili's bet. In hindsight, I really wish I would have gone a little bit more chalky, but it does guarantee that I have to pay for Betz's meal when I get to see him in about a month in Philly. So congrats. I'm assuming you're going to be ordering a couple Don Julios.
Oh, absolutely. Whatever the most expensive thing on the menu is, Kyle, you better believe it. Yeah, we did our mock. We were going through this morning, kind of recapping. It was 3-1. So neither of us did very well, but the Travis Hunter trade shook up a lot of mock drafts, obviously, and then it kind of had a ripple down effect from the top 5 to top 6. So yeah, mock drafts are hard, man. They're really hard. And a lot of times, you read them and you take them as this is what's going to happen. And I think NFL teams too kind of do the same thing of like, this is where we see players go. But we were kind of discussing the Broncos, right? Like they were mocked to running back in, I think, literally every mock except for like 5. But none of them had Jahdae Barron because nobody thought he would be there. And that's kind of the tricky thing with reading mock drafts is if they're facts. I think when you're doing it from a betting perspective, you want to get like a general trend on players of this is the range they could go. These are generally the positions that teams could target to kind of get you there. But yeah, man, mock drafting is nearly impossible.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, that was one we did for the show. And then there's one that you actually, get to submit every single year as part of the process. So there's definitely a different layer of how you're talking about it from a betting perspective, how we did in the DFS pass and what I would actually submit for a mock. So Shedeur Sanders was one of those players that we said like, hey, here's the range of outcomes. Here's the team he's met with. And here's what the NFL thinks about him so far. And here's who went to his birthday party. Apparently nobody wanted to go to Shedeur's birthday party. But all of that, at the end of the day, I just want to make sure everybody understands ultimatedraftkit.com. If you want to get on the DFS pass, player props, and just around the corner, we will have our best ball rankings. So next week's episode, just another tease, is a summer of best ball kickoff episode. So we moved from talking about the NFL draft to just changing our attention completely to, holy crap, we're going to be talking best ball for the next 2 or 3 months. And I don't know how you feel about best ball. I don't know if you're excited, but it hasn't fully hit me that this is where we're going to be at all. So, but I realize like I love best ball and our people love best ball.
I mean, if you were in Discord yesterday with us, there was Underdog opened another little board. I think it was on like Monday and had 0% shot of like actually being filled. So everybody was just drafting like crazy all day yesterday. So a lot of people were having fun with that, trying to get in the pre-lock for NFL draft. So that was its own event yesterday, which was a lot of fun. Best Ball Mania kicks off in just a couple of days. So yes, best ball season is here, man. I'm excited to have those rankings up very, very soon and learn more today and this weekend about some of the rookies and where they're going to go.
All right, let's talk about this first round.
Hey, rookie. Welcome to the NFL.
Okay, we're going to walk through the first round together and give our thoughts. Some of this will be football team building related because this affects how we look at win totals, and we will have another episode out in May, our win total spectacular. Some of this will be reaction to how we bet and some of the top 30 data that I had. But Cam Ward went at number 1. We knew that. We talked earlier that betting number 1, the best way to do it is find some long shots early in the offseason and kind of move in that direction. Because there was a point before the combine where it was, is this Ward? Is this Sanders? Is this Carter? Do they move down? And so it's kind of moving through that information that I think really is my takeaway point of it's important for us to not say what should the team do, what will they do, but looking at the market and saying, hey, there was a time where you could have bet Cam Ward, and then there was a time where you shouldn't bet Cam Ward when it's minus 10,000 or minus 20,000. So I don't really think there's much to say about the Titans here. It is nice to see a new regime and the way that they want to build. I also will mention that I don't know if their coaching staff will be around next year.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough with these rookie quarterbacks, man. Like the Jane Daniels situations are one in a very, very, small amount of time. Like it just doesn't happen. So we'll see. And we'll talk about Cam Ward's fit in Tennessee, I'm sure, a lot this summer and on the Dynasty podcast and all those things. But you have to win games to keep your job. And when you don't do that, then the turnover is there. And then it creates this ripple down effect of, we've seen it with a bunch of guys. And I'm not saying these are the same types of players, but like Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, changing coaching staff year over year over year. And then you kind of see how things play out. So we'll see. I did find it encouraging that there was a report that the Giants offered their pick this year. So obviously the third pick, next year's first, and then several other picks to try to get up. And they said, no, we're keeping it. So that's how highly they covet Cam Ward, which if you're a Titans fan or if you're a fan of Cam Ward, that's obviously going to give you a lot of confidence. I'm hopeful that they address the skill positions a little bit more here on day 2 tonight. So we'll see, because obviously right now behind Calvin Ridley, who's not at the peak of his career anymore, it is quite barren as far as these skill positions go. So we'll see.
It's also, you get to project out a couple of years with the Titans when some of their skill position guys won't even be around. Right. Even though Treylon Burks is wide receiver 4 and Cam Ward's mine, like wide receiver 4 in the league, he won't be on this roster. Chig is a free agent. Tony Pollard's near the end of his contract. Spears' knee is going to give out in a year. It's all those things that, who are the dudes on this team? And the rest of the roster is pretty barren. At pick 2, we saw a trade between the Jaguars and the Browns. It is interesting because the players that we thought would go in this spot actually did go in those spots at 2 and 5, just different teams. The Jaguars traded the 5th overall pick, a 2nd round pick, a 4th, and their future first. So this was like a big daddy trade to move up 3 spots to get a player that is going to play 100 plus snaps a game, which, we've never seen before. Very happy for fellow Georgia boy Travis Hunter, shout out Collins Hill High School, to get this. He deserves it. It is a lot to give up. And I think my biggest takeaway from this was I was just kind of proud of the Browns for admitting their Watson stuff and then saying, all right, we're stockpiling picks for the future. So from a team building perspective, I was like, go Browns. It's the way to do it. Any takeaways here for the Jaguars and Hunter?
I mean, what a trade. Nobody saw this coming until, a few hours before the draft started. So very, very fun from just an entertainment standpoint. We heard all week, skill player for the Jags. And we all said, okay, it's got to be Genty or it's got to be, McMillan. And they had something up their sleeve. So I love it when a new coaching staff and GM comes in and they're aggressive. Like the old Jaguars would not have done this. And I think when you look at the situation around Trevor Lawrence, it's like you're a couple years into his career at least. Like this guy has been in the league since 2021? Like it's kind of now or never to be like your chance to ascend as the top pick that he was supposed to be. Obviously, throwing to Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter will give him a chance to do that. They've obviously got issues on the defensive side of the ball, but oh wait, Travis Hunter can play cornerback. So I love the move for Jacksonville. I know it's a lot to give up to go up and get him, but that's how highly I think of him, and obviously how highly the Jaguars think of him. So I like the move. Super exciting. I think for fantasy, the question mark is just going to be, what does the split look like? FanDuel has a prop already up for him, 600.5 receiving yards. So they're clearly hedging and saying probably not full-time wide receiver. And then it's going to create a conversation in best ball and redraft and stuff is like, where do you take him? Right? Because I think he'll get steamed up probably as like a 4th or 5th round pick. The talent is there for that, but is the role, the routes, that kind of stuff going to be there? Very, very key decision this summer, and we'll talk about it throughout the offseason, but very fun trade. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting where he's going to play. He was going before the draft at pick 69 among wide receivers, so right around Debo, Calvin Ridley, Jerry Jeudy, kind of in this nebulous wide receiver 3 range, and I think he's going to boost his stock just a little bit from just hey, here's what this team thinks about this player. He's more of a Z flanker than, it's weird because last year he played all outside. The year before he was mostly slot, but all the talk from Liam Cohen has been Brian Thomas Jr. Holy crap, I didn't know he could do all this in the slot. The way I picture their offense is Brian Thomas Jr. is going to basically be CeeDee Lamb, where he moves all over the field. They're going to manufacture touches. They're going to get him in the slot. And they can do the same thing with Hunter, but Hunter, I think they're not going to give him the same type of routes over the middle. And so then you have Hunter outside, and then the guy formerly known as Gabe Davis maybe playing outside. They forget that they even have this guy on the roster. But interesting to say the least for Trevor Lawrence. That's the one that I'm kind of like, okay, how do people respond for best ball, and what do they do with him? But yeah, Travis Hunter, going to be a fun pick. If you had to take an over-under on that receiving yards line, I think I'd take the over.
I think I would too. I'm probably not going to bet it because there's just a wide range of...
Because we don't take overs?
I would rather die, Kyle. But just a wide range of what his playing time split is going to be. I think there's going to be games where he is a full-time wide receiver, but injury happens in the secondary or something like that, and then all of a sudden he's playing more corner, and you just don't really know from a season-long standpoint. We'll know kind of in season, but it's hard to project that. If I'm going to play anything with Travis Hunter at this point in the process, I might as well just kind of play a rookie of the year type thing and just embrace the volatility and high range of outcomes. That is plus 600 on FanDuel currently.
Let's take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
All right, so walking through the rest of the top 5, Abdul Carter went 3 to the Giants, Will Campbell 4 to the Patriots, and Mason Graham went 5 to the Browns. You know, a lot of this was chalk based on like what the board said. I think navigating Will Campbell was probably where we had a lot of our attention of, it seems like he's going to be a top 10 pick. It seems like he could be in this range to be a top 6 pick, and we knew who his top 30 visits were. It was the Patriots, Raiders, and Bears. And so you and I were pretty bullish on, I feel like it's going to be either Patriots, it's going to be Raiders. There's an outside chance that he could have gone to the Jags, but we bet Will Campbell as the first offensive lineman at minus 240, and it kind of held strong that he was the guy. So that felt good, a part of the process, because there was a point where it was back and forth between him and Mimbu. But anything you want to say about these picks?
Yeah, I think just in regards to that market, first offensive lineman, when you see minus 240, you're like, I don't want to bet that. But when we think the fair price should have been minus 800 or something like that, there's still value on that. Now, that's our personal way of betting the draft. Some people hate laying the juice, and that's totally fine. But when you have a good read on something, then you think it's going to close in your favor, we're willing to lay it. We've laid worse juice. I think we may lay like minus 400 on Micah Parsons to be the first linebacker years ago. Just an example. I think it closed like minus 1,000 or something like that. So good read on your part with Will Campbell. In general, in these markets, I think what you want to look at, not just team visits like you said, but also big board rankings and that sort of thing, is the fit. In general, teams will lean towards left side of the offensive line for right-handed quarterback. Then they will to the right. Membu, awesome combine, all that sort of stuff, but most people are projecting him to start as a right tackle, and generally speaking, not as highly coveted as the left tackle in the NFL's eyes, and we saw that with Will Campbell, who I think is an awesome, double for the Patriots. Like, I'm not sure if he'll be a all-pro in the future, but you got to give Drake May a chance, man. Like, you just kind of have to. The Patriots just had to do this because of the state of their offensive line, so very much a Mike Vrabel type pick. A safe pick, but I think he'll be effective and he'll be able to give the Patriots offensive line some stability, which they had literally zero of last year.
Yeah, and I think the laying the juice part is my biggest takeaway of this pick of like, there's a certain point where you ask yourself the question, like, how far could this get out? And you and I were looking at minus 240 when we took and we said, man, I feel like this should be, like you said, minus 800, maybe minus 500, whatever. And I'm willing to lay the juice for these type of players. Mason Graham, I did want to give this point because with all of the talk of the Jaguars, we're like, oh man, they're gonna take a skill position player. We're hearing a lot about Genty there. It was like, well, where do we put Mason Graham? And there was points where Mason Graham was falling out of the top 10 for a lot of people in a lot of mocks because there's just nowhere to put him. It's like, well, if we don't put him at 5, I don't think the Raiders take him. I don't think the Jets take him. I guess the Panthers. It's like, he just was falling out of a lot of mocks, and I did the research, and then Betz, in your final mock you submitted for like competition purposes, we held strong of like Mason Graham's a top 10 pick. Like, this is where he should go. And I look, since 2018, every single defensive end, tackle, line, whatever, if they were ranked inside of the top 10, they were going inside the top 10. So the fact that Mason Graham all of a sudden was just falling out felt nonsensical. And I think for a while he did think he was going to be a Jaguar, and then they were able to pull off this trade last. So Mason Graham, I think, is one of my biggest takeaways. Like, if somebody's a top 10 guy and they've been top 10 the whole time, just because there's a speculation the week of the draft, let's not just drop him out just because. So that's my takeaway there. At 6, it was the Raiders all along. It was Pete Carroll all along who said, you know what? I got to get a running back at 6.
I love it. For fantasy. This is going to be so fun. How many touches is Ashton Genty going to have in his first year?
They're going to break him.
Oh my goodness. By behind him is Raheem Mostert, who's broken all the time. So like they have to just
whoa.
feed this
Don't
guy.
forget about Zamir White.
Well, for now. Look, this is not how I would build a team personally, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the implications and the fallout. In this draft, a lot of people said Ashton Jeanty is a top 5 player, period. Now, when you adjust for positional value, maybe that changes. But clearly he was that high on their board. And when you look at the identity of the team, it's no question what they want to do with Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll. So the fit is unbelievable. The opportunity is unbelievable. He is the most talented running back in this class. Dynasty, easy 101, and in redraft / best ball, the question I have for you, and I'm putting you on the spot here, but where do you think you're going to slot him in initial rankings? Because he will no longer be going in the second round.
So going ahead of him was Saquon, Bijan, and Gibbs, and I still would take all 3 of those running backs over him. But in terms of wide receiver, he was kind of in that fringe, round 1, round 2 spot. I think I would take him over Nico Collins. And then I think he'd end up being like my 9th or 10th player.
My gut
which
reaction
is where
was like
Zeke was his rookie year.
Yeah. My gut reaction was like 7 to 9, somewhere in that window. So I'm with you, but fun player, man. It should be great for fantasy.
Yeah, Betz and I were looking at our early best ball rankings before the draft, and we were having a conversation of like, gosh, like where do we put Jeanty? And now we have the landing spot. It is funny that Jeanty and Bowers are like right there, right next to each other in best ball rankings for a lot of people. Now, it will be funny to see what people do with CMC because Jeanty is going to rise just from recency bias, and CMC kind of ends up being in the second round. So getting Christian McCaffrey in the second round is just dang fun.
He's not the hot name anymore, man. People are done with CMC. It's Jeanty now.
He's old news. Okay, so Mimbu went at 7 with the Jets. That's the chalk. The Panthers took Tet McMillan, and I do want to give this point. The character stuff that came out about Tet McMillan was, oh, he doesn't watch film, or he doesn't care. I think at the end of the day, every single team does their homework behind the scenes about character stuff. Like they have people that get paid to interview and do all this stuff. When we get to James Pierce, that's also a part of the conversation of like them talking to him, talking to his mother, all these things. And with Tet McMillan, he was a top 10 player on people's boards. And I forget the stat that I have in front of me. Oh, here it is. If you were ranked consensusly as a top 10 player in general, and you're a wide receiver, every single one of them went in the top 10 in the NFL draft. And that's where Tet McMillan was. So at the end of the day, I think that we can kind of like look through character things and kind of move on. Like this is how it works, right?
Every year, dude. Every year. I put this tweet out back on March 26th. I said, these are the things you can put in pen every single draft cycle. Overblown character issues, reports that teams have, this player ranked higher than the other player or closer than you think. This quarterback could sneak into round 1. There's rumors of a certain player doesn't want to play for a team and the NFL overvaluing the 40-yard dash. Like that's kind of the stuff you can always count on happening at some point between like February and March leading up to the draft. And I think it's important from like a landing spot / draft range perspective on some of these guys to understand, like, if you can figure this out, which it's not always available, so I'm not saying it's easy, but like not all character stuff is the same. Like Mike Green has sexual assault allegations, allegedly. I'm not here to say they're right or wrong or whatever, but allegedly that's kind of been the thing with him. Whereas like with Tet McMillan, it's like, does this guy love football? And those are clearly not the same thing, right? So
and the Panthers don't care about that.
Obviously, yeah. So obviously those are not the same thing. But yes, I thought T-Mac was a really strong prospect. We talked about this on the Dynasty podcast, that it kind of felt like in January, February, it was like, oh, this is going to be an awesome guy. Like, can't wait for him to see his landing spot. Really fun prospect. And then over the last month, it was like, he kind of lost his shine. Like, he might fall. And I'm happy about this landing spot personally. Like, I think he's going to walk in right away and be the one. And for Bryce Young, we talked about it last offseason. They kind of tried to like give him the weapons to maybe get him going. And I think this is a legit effort to do that. Now, that defense still needs so much help. So like for fantasy, I kind of like this. I'm not sure how real life NFL is going to go, but for fantasy, I think you could see some Panthers games get a little wild here with the state of the defense and a fun playmaker on offense. So we'll see. But yes, I think that character stuff is really important to try to sift through and make educated guesses on that, because it's hard to do.
No, that's a good point for range of outcomes for a player. And then when you and I talk about DFS on single game outcomes, at the end of the year, you saw that. They kind of embraced this like, hey, let's just go for it. They had a couple of shootouts, including with the Falcons. So yeah, I like that call with McMillan. I wrote an article about projecting NFL draft capital, and all I was trying to do was just looking at final mock draft database numbers. And here are all of the wide receivers, basically over the last decade, that were ranked on people's boards consistently at the very, very end as a top 12 player. It was Travis Hunter, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Jalen Waddle, Tet McMillan, Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith, and all of them went in the top 10. And yet, we were getting a moment in the betting markets where it's like, Tet McMillan, he could fall to the end of the first round. So I think this is more of a takeaway when we bet in the future. If this player is consensus top 10 player, they're going in the top 10. I don't know the landing spot. Like you and I were speculating, could he go to the Patriots? He met with them. The Raiders, the Jets obviously need wide receiver help. And he ended up on the Panthers. So I think next time, I will just hone in on, I don't know the landing spot for this guy, but I will lay the juice for him being a top 10 pick.
Yep, I think that's a good takeaway. I had him, and this was obviously a mistake in hindsight, but just bad process. I had him, I think 18th in my final mock that I submitted. And with this data, like I shouldn't have put him outside the top 12, right, to Dallas or something like that was right. His range. So definitely a good takeaway.
Your point was, Kyle, why didn't you share this data with me?
Yeah, what the heck, man? You're doing this after the fact. No, you said, did you read my article? I said, I'm sorry, I didn't. but you did put out an awesome article, which reading now in hindsight, I'm like, oh, obviously. So yeah, check it out. It's on the site. Obviously, it won't help you a lot this year or this time now, but for next year, like a lot of good stuff to file away. So yeah, man, you crushed it this draft cycle.
Oh, well, you should see my my mock draft I just put out Friday morning for round one. It's perfect. That's all you got to do in this business. You just post an article, people won't understand. You post it after, like, man, what a good mock draft from Kyle.
Change the date and time on it. Yeah, man.
All right, we're going to keep going through the first round, maybe move a little quicker through some of these picks, but we got to talk about Kelvin Banks because we talked about him a ton. You put out Saints first position drafted offensive line at plus 225, so that was a hit for the DFS pass, but more importantly, did you see the baby puke while he was on camera?
Oh, I did see it, and I hated it. I hate baby puke, man. Do you know, have you seen the movie Four Christmases with Vince Vaughn?
Yes.
The baby puking scene where Vince Vaughn is just like gagging and can't control himself. That's how I feel. So when I saw it, I was like, oh, I had to look away. Like it was so bad. But yes, that was hilarious that Jeremy brought that up in Slack. It's like, what an incredible life moment for this guy. Like, Kelvin Banks, congratulations, you're a top 10 pick. Oh my gosh, that baby's puking. It was like, it took over. So that was very funny. But yeah, man, we're unfortunately have to relive that. So thanks.
I think my favorite part of draft night, so spoiler alert, I usually I like watching by myself. Last year I was in Arizona, but I like just have my own
Kyle, we know.
Yeah. I've talked about this before, but having our company Slack open where, people aren't really given analysis. Like I don't really care about analysis or like good pick, bad pick. It's mostly us pointing out really stupid things. And so when Jeremy, Al Borland, our producer, it's like, guys, you see that baby puke? That became our conversation for a while. So the Saints, the other point about the Saints is that we just kind of hammered home, like, this is not a sure spot. Now, did I hold my breath when the Saints were picking? Yes, because I hammered home. No team has taken a quarterback in the first round and not done a top 30 visit with them. It hasn't happened, and they didn't meet with him, and they didn't pick him. So I'm glad that data won. That's the bigger point, that spreadsheets won.
Spreadsheets always win, Kyle. Don't worry about that. Real quick, on Shador, I don't know if you plan to talk about that today. ESPN, what are you doing? I'm sorry. The first pick in the draft was known by everybody, yet they spent the first few minutes of the telecast showing Shador Sanders highlights. What are you doing? So putting them on blast, that was egregious. And the fact that the entire first round storyline was his slide, when the conversation for the last month was not every team in the first round has a first round grade on Shedeur Sanders, and you saw the writing on the wall. He's going to slip outside the top 10. Everybody knew it, yet they played it up as if it was this huge thing. So I feel bad for him in that aspect. I thought they definitely were way too over the top with that, and was not what you wanted to see for a young guy.
Yeah, I respect Mel Kiper as in my childhood.
Oh, definitely.
And like what he's done for the stuff, but his grades for quarterback, which quarterback I feel like is a position that I like the most and I've scouted the most, he kind of held to it. And so half the broadcast, if you're watching on ESPN, was like, I can't believe Sanders is falling. And then the rest of us are like, I feel like I understand why Sanders is falling.
It was like it became clear in the last, I would say, like 2 weeks. It was pretty much Giants or bust in the top 10, and then Steelers, or you hope somebody trades up in the 20s. But yeah, like pick 18, they're like, best available. This could be it. It's like, what are you doing? So I know they do that for clicks and ratings and all those things. It was just super annoying. So had to get that off my chest.
10th overall was the Bears, who took Colston Loveland, your boy, out of Michigan. It was interesting kind of looking at their process because they did have a top 30 meeting with Tyler Warren. So they were clearly addressing tight end position. And the data says if you meet with a tight end, at least one top 30 visit, you're very likely to take one. But what we found out later is that Loveland met with them on his pro day in Michigan. And he says his meeting went really good with the Bears. And he talked about Sam Laporta, and Ben Johnson really liked that. And that's all the hindsight analysis. I'm going to have to do a deeper dive next year on who did you meet with on your pro day individually. So I got to start sending out people, because top 30 visits, I have that data, have it in the spreadsheets. I didn't know that he met with them secretly, though.
Secret meeting, Kyle. Come on, you're not working hard enough. I do want to give you a little hat tip. We never took this officially, sadly.
Oh God, that's a great thing to hear after the fact.
But you said on the pod, you're like, hey man, I think Loveland might be able to go in the top 10. And I think it was like plus 1,000 or something like that
plus
at
1,000
the time. So hopefully somebody got in on that. I sadly did not, and I know you did not. But good call there. Yeah, interesting fit. Like, I'm excited to break down these tight ends throughout the offseason because they're great players. I don't know if you want to talk about both of them together here, but like the Bears offense, I'm way more excited about than the Colts from a passing perspective because, well, it's Richardson and it's, maybe Daniel Jones, but Warren's going to be competing for touches with Jonathan Taylor and Josh Downs, Michael Pittman in a low volume offense. So like I could see how he provides a lot of value to the team, but like I kind of struggle to see how it works as a rookie. And then for Loveland, we generally want these guys for fantasy to be like the top tier options. They have to be number 1 or number 2 in the pecking order in targets. They kind of just have to be. And when you look at the depth chart, that's a question mark with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze there. So interesting landing spots. I'm obviously more excited about Loveland year 1. But I feel like in dynasty circles, Warren might become a nice value because of the perceived bad landing spot from a target's perspective. So we'll see on that.
And I think it's tough for Loveland. Like he's entering that team as their tight end too. I mean, that's tough.
Poor Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet's just going to block now.
Cole Kmet actually is going to get paid a ton this year, and then they'll probably cut him the year after. But it's an interesting process. Like Loveland, I brought up some stuff of just he on Dynasty Podcast doesn't break tackles. Is he this hybrid Dalton Kincaid type? We'll see. In rookie drafts right now, I know we're talking Dynasty, I would take Warren over Colston Loveland.
I had Loveland slightly ahead even before the draft. I think I would stick to that. But I wouldn't fault anybody for either direction.
Who has the dog?
Tyler Warren.
Okay. I love Tyler Warren. He's so fun to root for. At 11, the Niners took Mykel Williams. You had this as a bet. The Niners' first position drafted defensive line edge. So that was nice to see through that. He was wearing his sunglasses this whole time on the thing. It's like, dude, I just want to see you. You're a Georgia boy. So that was nice. The Cowboys took Tyler Booker, who was probably the happiest man on the planet when he was running through. I was really I expected him when he was running through that tunnel just to knock over everything, because he was so happy. He also, I love this quote in his speech. They were asking the question, what's it like to be drafted? You're a Cowboy. He's like, oh, I always knew it was going to be a Cowboy. And he goes, and you know what? Shout out to God. And I was like, you're the man, but also it's just a funny little way of phrasing your shout out. Every player gets to give their thanks, but he's like, shout out to God.
Yeah, this was definitely higher than a lot of people had. I know at the time, I don't know if this is still true in hindsight, but at the time, based off consensus big board rankings, this was the biggest, air quotes, reach of the first round. So we'll see. The Cowboys definitely needed offensive line help. A lot of people thought they were going to take wide receiver, but they lost a couple of guys to retirement this offseason, Hall of Fame potential type players to retirement. So they needed offensive line help. He did not test super well, so like really low on relative athletic score. 12th overall for a guard that doesn't have athleticism. We'll see, but I can't fault the Cowboys for wanting to invest in the offensive line because they definitely need help. They have to hit skill positions on day 2 and 3. Otherwise, we're talking about Jonathan Mingo as an every down player for this team.
Oh, you mean Jalen Tolbert?
The boys.
Jalen Tolbert was a fun best ball player last year.
He was, but I think we would all largely agree he's more of like a wide receiver 4 NFL caliber type guy.
They just don't have... Yeah, I agree. They don't have anybody to soak up targets. So I'm interested to see who the ancillary weapons are because their team in best ball rankings is CeeDee Lamb and then this massive gap. And we would normally say like, hey, those are teams you just don't really invest in, but really there might be somebody who's a value. And I don't think that it is Javonte, and I don't think it's Miles Sanders. I think it's somebody that we don't know yet.
Yep, we'll find out this weekend.
All right, so Kenneth Grant went to the Dolphins, Michigan defensive tackle. Tyler Warren, we talked about him in the Colts. Can we talk about the Falcons?
Let's do it.
All right, at 15, the Falcons did something for the first time in their franchise. They took a Georgia player in their first round. Imagine that. Like all of my friends were just like, wait, what? Wait, we took Jalen Walker, who I think was penciled in for a long time to the Panthers early on at 8. That was kind of like the betting favorite. And the fact that he was available here was very exciting from just, I'm from Georgia, this is a Georgia player, and we need edge rush, and we're doing something logical. So from that sense, I think everybody was just ecstatic. Obviously, I was very terrified we were going to do something stupid, but this was what the betting favorite was to take an edge. We just didn't think it would be Jalen Walker. We thought it would be some other combination of somebody else. But I think I know what it feels like to make a logical decision for the first time.
What was the stat? First Georgia player to the Falcons since 1966?
Yeah, first or second round.
That is insane. I mean, you're right there. Like, just scout the guys that are the good players. That's wild. In the betting perspective, I feel terrible for anybody that held a Falcons edge player ticket because he was scored as a linebacker, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if that was book to book, but that's a really bad beat if that was you. But from a value standpoint for the Falcons, home run pick, right? I mean, we all thought he would be 8th or maybe he would kind of go in the top 10 at least. And you get him at 15, and we've been talking about it for the last, 9 seasons. The Falcons need a pass rush. They definitely addressed that at 15. Do you want to talk about the trade now?
Yeah, we could talk about the trade.
Okay, let's talk about the trade.
I think so. If it was just Jalen Walker, which, by the way, my boys, this is a funny story. My boys woke up this morning and they were like, oh, who did we pick? And so I said, why don't you just ask your Alexa? And so they asked, they asked the weather in the morning usually when they wake up before school.
So do my girls.
So the Falcons, the Alexa said, the Falcons with the 15 picks selected Halone Walker. So that's who Truman said the rest of the morning. It was like, we picked Halone.
I love that.
So, okay, so the Falcons, we'll scoot forward a little bit and then we'll take a break after this. But they took James Pierce. They traded with the Rams at 26. They gave up pick 46, which is a second round pick 242, which I think no one really cares about that. But the big story was they gave up next year's first round pick. And what they got back was 26 and a third round pick. From a value perspective, I feel like this has been raked over the coals because in context, the Giants traded up right before them and didn't have to do the same trade. The Falcons had to move up 20 spots, so it is different if you're just comparing apples to apples from what the Giants did. But this has been destroyed by a lot of people of like, hey, you had a good pick at 15. What are you doing at 26? And people that play in their spreadsheets bets, you know how they do.
Oh,
they
I
just
know.
look at draft charts and they say, this doesn't make sense. And I'm obviously not one of those people
No, of
that
course
looks
not.
at spreadsheets. So what's your perspective of just the trade value?
So I think this could go one of two ways, and anybody that says that they know how this will go is, you don't know. Like, nobody knows. Because if Michael Penix hits and he is the starter for this team for the next 5+ years and he's good, I think this is fine. If James Pierce works out. The problem is, I feel like the Falcons are acting as if they know Michael Penix is the guy. And we saw flashes, but it was like 6 games, right? Like, I don't know that you can really make a definitive decision on that type of situation. Maybe they feel that strongly, and they clearly do. But if for some reason Michael Penix does not work out this year, I think there is a range of outcomes where that happens.
Yes.
You're stuck, right? Because then you don't have your first round pick next year to invest in a quarterback. That's where the trade for me, I had a little bit of an issue with it from a team building perspective. But if Penix hits and James Pierce's, character stuff works out, and these 2 players are your edge rushers for the next 6, 7, 8 years, and they're productive and they're good, nobody will talk about this trade ever again. So I see a world where it works, but I definitely think they paid a lot to get him. We'll see.
Yeah, they definitely paid a lot. I have some more thoughts, but we're going to take a quick break, and then I will just go for it.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Okay, so you wanted to actually hear what I really think?
Yep.
We are geniuses. You guys are all idiots. You guys could not be stupider. No, I'm just kidding. My take is not grading the trade, not grading this stuff, but looking at it from a value perspective, they definitely overpaid. But what they're essentially saying is, hey, if we're going to pick an edge rusher next year, we think whoever it's going to be is going to be less of a player than James Pierce. A year ago, if you and I would have made a bet in a sports book about who the number 1 overall pick was, James Pierce was actually the betting favorite at one point. Coming out of Tennessee, he had a really good, I know. He had a really good sophomore year, and then there was some issues of production. Did he care? There's all the off the field concerns, and I'm just going to throw a lot of the off the field stuff in the garbage and say the team did their homework. They talked to him. They talked all this stuff. Now, Atlanta's its own city, so who knows what his experience is going to be. But at the end of the day, they looked at this player and said, hey, at pick 46, we didn't really like the edge rush guys. We had James Pierce graded as a top 10, 15 player, whatever it is. And so for them, the opportunity cost was, hey, do we wait till next year to get an edge rusher? Or do we just take that first round pick and say, hey, it's this guy right here? They still got a 3rd round pick back. I think they overpaid. You can definitely grade the trade as they overpaid. That's fine. But if they think James Pierce is a difference-making defensive end, then they're giving up what they would have taken next year, and they don't know who is going to be there. And on top of that, here's the bigger point to me. Terry Fontenot, the GM, made this trade, and he could be wrong about Penix. He could be wrong about Pierce. And guess what? If he is, he's gone. It doesn't matter. He's not building as if he's right. And if he's right about Penix and he's right about Pierce, he's going to look super smart a year from now. And that's his pick with Penix, we're all like, who knows if it works out. In his mind, he thinks he has the guy, and that's how he's building. I'm not saying it's the right way to do it. I'm just giving you the process of how it works. So I'm excited that we picked 2 edge players from a fan perspective.
Finally.
I know. And SEC players. Who would have thought that we would have done this? So from the team building perspective, there's some question marks. From a fandom, cool. This is a fun team. We got some defensive players. We obviously have some offensive pieces that are really, really fun. And I didn't have a heart attack from us taking Shedeur Sanders.
That's the biggest takeaway.
That is really the biggest takeaway, if we're really honest. Okay, so that's my Falcon stuff. It's kind of cool to like pick good players.
That is good, right? It's fun when that happens.
It's good. It's really good to pick SEC players that are good. Okay, so going back, the Cardinals picked Walter Nolan at 16, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. You and I had talked about him for a while. It's like he keeps moving up board. He could be a top 10 pick. He could be on that fringe, top 20. He was also a player that you could have just bet first round for a while. It's like he's just moving up boards. So that one made a ton of sense. Shamar Stewart, I have the hardest time figuring out if he's going to work in the NFL.
I don't think anybody knows.
He has 4.5 sacks in his career.
Yeah. It's the ultimate, traits versus production argument. Some teams value one side more than the other, but obviously we'll find out soon enough.
And you kind of knew the Bengals were slotted in to take a defensive player, so
yeah.
You could have shoot your shot there. Gray Zabel went to the Seahawks, which I had in a mock, and he seemed like one of those players that's the culture fit. You had him as a first-round pick that we laid some juice, but he's another one of those guys that I think we felt fine saying, hey, just this guy's going to be a first-round pick. Who cares what it is? We took it at minus 139.
Yeah, this was a massive misprice. This was on Bet Rivers, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or something like that. They opened their market. It's yes or no, type of thing. It opened, I think, at like minus 120 or something, and we didn't get it like the second it came out, but this thing closed like minus, 1,500 or something. Like, just clearly someone was asleep at the wheel. Frank from Risk Management over there, he is getting reamed out this morning. Let me tell you what. Because that was just one of those that you pick off and you're like, wow, I can't believe this is even an option. Had an awesome workout the entire offseason. Really good reports from the Senior Bowl, like good character type guy. And I think a really good fit for what Seattle needs. They need interior offensive linemen like you would not believe. And Zabel definitely fits the bill here. So I love the quote you pulled. Yeah. I'll let you share that after his selection, but I think it's a great fit for Seattle.
Yeah, he was asked about what he's going to do now that the Seahawks have taken him 18th overall, and Gray Zabel said, man, I'm probably going to start diving into these bush lights. Which,
what a guy.
I can say this. I've never really been a bush light guy.
I was just thinking, I don't even know if I've ever had a bush light.
I don't think I have either. And maybe, somebody else out there like, that's all I have. I'm a bush light guy through and through. It's like, that's just not, maybe that's like a Southern thing. I just don't know anyone that has bush lights.
You know what, Kyle? We'll get some for the Phillies Braves tailgate.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's speaking of sponsors. Pick 19 was a shocker that the Buccaneers took Emeka Egbuka. Now, we had him as the second wide receiver. This is one of our biggest hits, right? For people that took props.
Yeah, we took him under 28 or 29.5, depending on your book, for his position because we all thought, I'll go somewhere in the 20s. Nobody thought he would go 19, but we did basically just embrace the variance of the wide receiver market where, honestly, like if the T-Mac stuff was real and he did slip, who knows, right? The golden thing was like, it felt like Dallas or bust kind of in terms of like falling out of the top 20. And so we were like, hey, there's a good chance Egbuka is just higher on people's boards because he tested better than people thought at his pro day. Ohio State connection, really high character type guy. Like he's just a safe first round pick. So we threw a dart on it and we're fortunate to have it hit. This landing spot's wild. Obviously short term, you think about what they have in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and Jalen McMillan can play. Now, this is terrible for Jalen McMillan. But it seems redundant. I will say maybe they're planning for life after Evans, or if Godwin's recovery doesn't go the way we think it's going to go. But for Jalen McMillan, man, that is brutal as far as the investment in Godwin in free agency and then immediately in Egbuka with the first round pick. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, he was a trade away candidate all offseason, our Dynasty Pass, where we talked about his touchdown rate wasn't sustainable. And then Mike was just like, I want people to know I'm out on this player for Godwin reasons. None of us thought they'd take a wide receiver, but I feel kind of sad because you and I have always liked Egbuka. And now I feel like we have to like temper our expectations in year one and temper my expectations in rookie draft. Talking about dynasty drafts, like next week's show, we will do a draft, a post-draft, one for dynasty purposes. And I was like, man, I feel so comfortable on the landing spot, picking him out like 106, 107. Now I'm like, ugh. But you and I understand, and we've done the studies and we have all the stuff on our website, but Wide receiver talent is what you bet on. Landing spot, you just take out of the picture. It's actually not nearly as important because in 2 years, it's possible that Evans and Godwin are not on this team.
Totally. It's also, and look, I think the recovery will go okay for Godwin, but there is a chance and a range of outcomes where he's not the same player this year. And then what if his snaps come down and Igbuka's go up, right? So like, and you're tied to a good offense in Baker Mayfield. So like, I'm not totally out on landing spot. Obviously, from a projection standpoint, when you plug in the targets, it's not going to look good. But like you said, in Dynasty especially, you're betting on talent here with Igbuka and first-round draft capital with his production. Like, analytically, he looks very, very good. Obviously, the start to the season, I think, will be very, very slow.
And once again, hat tip to you, because I think the process for betting the NFL draft is you're going to get a ton of stuff wrong. But if you get a couple of these long shots, you hit on them, plus 750, that's helpful. And I think a lot of people came out on the plus side. We were plus 9 units if you would have bet the way that we usually do.
Yep.
Okay. At 20 was the Broncos. If you would have faded the running back chalk, you would have done well. Now, nobody saw us, with Jahdae Barron, the cornerback out of Texas, going here. I think that was kind of a shock for a lot of people. It's like, they don't need to pick defense. Once again, this is us playing GM and needs, and I think they got to their board and go, oh, this guy's still on the board? We thought he would, not be there. So that was nice. We also took under 4.5 cornerbacks. I was kind of shocked looking at the board that like Will Johnson kept sliding. And so this was another hit for us, under 4.5 cornerbacks.
Yeah, we got it minus 250. Not very fun to lay, but when you started to go through mocks and you started to look at big board rankings consensus, it was kind of hard to slot some guys in there. And then once the Will Johnson, injury concerns really started to come to fruition, it was like, oh man, like you're counting on, you need Revel, the guy who tore his ACL out of East Carolina, Trey Amos, Maxwell Harrison. Like you need like multiple of those guys to sneak into the first round for this to not cash. So one of those that not fun to lay, but definitely seemed like it was the right side.
All right, so I need to hear your Steelers thought at 21, because this was the spot of Sanders or Dart in most mock drafts. They take Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle at Oregon. That's fine. Which, by the way, one of his family members, and this is a key point of the draft, I don't know if you guys realize this, one of his family members was wearing an Adam Banks Mighty Ducks jersey, and that floored me. So that was one of those things in our chat that I was like, I gotta bring this up, because this is huge. This is huge news. But on top of that, what are the Steelers doing, man?
So, like, as far as how the team wants to play, it's no secret. Run the ball, play good defense, win 9 games, lose in the wild card. That's what they want to do.
They haven't won a playoff game in 9 years.
It's so funny. My neighbor's a Steelers fan, and he's like, well, guess we're going to sneak in again this year and then lose. Really, really fun. Just so funny that that's kind of how the team is viewed. But I think he's a good player, and I think it's a good fit in terms of how the defense will work and all those sort of things. So I think from a pick perspective, it's fine. What I take away from it is like they hate these quarterbacks. Like they hate them because they don't pick in the second round. Their next pick is 83 overall. Maybe one of these dudes falls to them there, but like the plan right now seems to be we're running it back with Mason Rudolph. Pray Aaron Rodgers doesn't retire or somehow work a trade for Kirk Cousins. Like those are kind of the options. And the fact that they were willing to just say, look, let's not waste the pick on a quarterback here tells you a lot about how this team views the quarterback class. So I don't know, man. I think we're looking at a situation where the quarterback room could very well be Mason Rudolph and Aaron Rodgers.
There's literally nobody else in free agency.
Nope. Carson Wentz?
Did Carson Wentz sign with somebody?
Is he a free agent?
Oh, man. Let's
what
see.
A quarterback
right now,
room. Can you imagine?
Yeah, he's technically could be signed.
So it's currently Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson.
Okay, Skylar Thompson, I respect what he did in college. I respect him as a human being. He should not be in the NFL.
No, come on.
No. You need to call it like it is. Should be out of the league. That's what you need to say sometimes about people.
My other takeaway for this, there was some rumblings, maybe they go running back. If you're a Jalen Warren truther, like me, this is nice. I still think they're adding to the running back room, don't get me wrong. But There was fears of like, could this be Omarion Hampton? Or could this be Travion Henderson? And obviously that would have changed a ton as far as the outlook for Warren. So we'll see what they do at the 83rd pick and, on day 3. But the quarterback question mark is just massive right now for this team, especially with the current state of the wide receiver room, which is very talented. So hard to figure out what this is, but they hate these quarterbacks, man.
They have 9 visits, top 30 visits with running backs, and a lot of them are in that range for late day 2, day 3. So like they met with Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee, DJ Giddens, Byshal Tootin, Jaden Blue, Ollie Gordon, RJ Harvey. I think all of those guys are probably going to be a compliment. And I think the fact that they're giving Warren that money, $5 million, like they didn't need to spend first round draft capital at all.
Yeah.
So
it'll be some sort of committee.
Yeah, I bet it's going to end up being round 4, which still, based on our data, is if you have 3 or more visits, you have an 80% likelihood in the first 4 rounds. So I think that's where they're probably going to end up going. Going to go a little quicker through some of these. I think the fantasy implications of Marion Hampton to the Chargers is the bigger conversation. We will save that for the Dynasty podcast. Matthew Golden, all my Packers fans friends were like, no, we took Golden, but Golden was really happy. We talked about him a ton on the Dynasty pod. You also went back and forth about the Packers taking a wide receiver at plus 500. Spoiler, we did not give out that bet.
Pain, Kyle, pain. I messaged you on April 23rd. Said, hey, I'm considering firing on wide receiver
2:12 p.m.
at plus 500 on Green Bay. And I didn't because they met with McMillan, Golden, and Egbuka. And their GM went to their pro days, and he historically drafts players when he goes to those guys. But my fear and hesitation was like, I don't think these guys make it to 20 or 23 or whatever they were. So that was a silly thing on my part. I should have trusted my gut and gone for it.
No, I that is a good point of saying if they're meeting with this many first-round players as top 30 visits, I need to probably filter that data for next year. That'll be a little study for me. But it's like, if you're meeting with this many first-round players, it's usually a sign that you are taking somebody with top, 50 pick draft capital.
Right.
So Golden went there at 23. The Vikings took the most boring pick in the world, offensive guard Donovan Jackson. Cool. Sorry, Vikings fans, you're not the story. The Giants, though, trading up for Jackson Dart. They gave up 34th overall, 99th, and a third. So I think people are comparing the Giants and the Falcons. They're different deals for different positions, but the Giants did give up a lot to move up to take a quarterback.
Yeah, definitely. And, the Russ signing, the Jameis signing, people all said the whole time, like, this does not prevent us from taking a quarterback. Obviously, with the top 30 data you have on the quarterbacks they met with, which was basically everybody, it was very clear they were taking one at some point, whether it was round 2 or trade up, if not at the 3rd pick. So we'll see on Jackson Dart. I know you're a fan. I'm actually a fan for fantasy. Like, if he gets on the field, he's mobile, he can run. Throwing to Malik Neighbors is not the worst thing in the world. Like, there's a situation where this works. The only problem I have is, like, everybody's like, oh, it's a great fit in Dayball's offense. Like, is Dayball the guy? I know, man. And hey, maybe they surprise us. They win 8 or 9 games. They keep their job. But, like, if this is another 6-win season, 5-win season, the writing's on the wall that this is just going to happen. And then, as we talked about with Cam Ward, like, rookie quarterbacks coming in that change systems all the time, it's really tough. So, massive range of outcomes on Dart. But for this year, if he gets on the field and Neighbors is healthy and he'll run, I think he's going to be playable. Like, there's probably going to be weeks in DFS where we're playing Jackson Dart.
Yeah, it felt good in the process when we went through the quarterbacks and we identified Jackson Dart as, hey, I think he's a fantasy difference maker. And on this podcast, when we first looked at best ball rankings a while ago, I was like, I feel like this guy might be a first-round pick in the NFL. And in best ball, he's being left for dead knowing that he's going to run the ball. Now, there's still a different conversation of how much does Russ start? How much time does he get to hang out with Jameis? I don't know. I don't know if him and Jackson are going to be buddies, but it is nice to kind of see scouting wise, like, this is how the NFL looked at him. Could be all over the map, and we don't really know what their offensive coaching staff will be. Like, if I had to guess right now, I would put it more likely that Daboll is not there.
Agreed. I haven't looked at their updated win total. I don't know if it changed after their 2 picks, but it was one of the lowest in the league entering, the offseason. So the market is not indicating that this will be a successful team.
Yeah. Brutal division to be a part of.
Big time.
I'm going to go quickly to the end of the first round and kind of wrap up. But Malachi Starks, this is a classic Ravens pick. Just sit there and wait to take good players.
Every year.
That's what they do. And this is why, and they always pick around the same spot too. That's the crazy part. Just like not at the end because they can't win the AFC.
Maybe this year.
God, you and I are such pro Raven. Like, even though we're fans of teams in the NFC, like we're so pro. This is how you run a franchise. You're winning. We love Lamar. We're suckers for the Ravens.
Mark Andrews still on the team.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see. The Lions took Tyreek Williams out of Ohio State. Commanders took Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon. Maxwell Harrison was a cornerback taken by the Bills. And then the Eagles traded up one spot. Now, I at least poke holes and say that you guys, like, did they have to trade up one spot in hindsight?
I think what did they give up? A fifth?
A fifth.
Do it? I don't know. They probably didn't need to. Like, I think a lot of people thought the Chiefs were going to take offensive line, which they did. So probably unnecessary, but there was reports that the Eagles were trying to get up into the early 20s when Campbell was still on the board. So he was like clearly the target. Maybe they just didn't want to mess around and just make sure they got him. But I love the fit. Just a good football player. He does have some medical concerns, so we'll see on that. But
don't we all?
Don't we all? Yeah, everybody's aching a little bit. My back was a little tight this morning. But last year's starter Nakobe Dean tore his patellar tendon in the playoffs. So this is immediately hey, we have a plan for Nakobe Dean not being healthy. So go Eagles.
I saw a lot of scouting reports from people I trust in the industry, and they're like, my biggest comp for Jihad Campbell was Zach Bond. I was like, oh, cool. Another all-pro. That's great.
I love Howie.
Gosh, it's got to be so fun to just look at it. Like, it's not like you have like one player, like we got to count on just Jalen Carter. If he doesn't come through, our defense is not going to be good. That was the Falcons. It's like Grady Jarrett, nobody else. You guys get to look at your roster and go, this game, it's probably like one of these two guys. And then maybe it's like this guy over here or somebody in the secondary.
What I want to know is who on day 3 Howie's going to trade, a couple of fourths for and somehow land an all-pro. I'm just waiting for that trade.
Shedeur.
Stop.
Just to mess with everybody. All right, let's finish this out.
I want to play a game.
All right, this isn't in the traditional sense of the game where I get to embarrass Betz with some random trivia that he shouldn't know anyways. This is just us going really quickly through a couple of categories. So, Betz, give me the team you were most surprised at by their pick.
Egbuka to the Bucks. Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah, I feel like it didn't make a lot of sense at all in the time. I think the Steelers is just shocked me. Like, I just don't know their process, and I can't figure out. Now, I'm not knocking the pick of Derek Harmon at all. It's just more of like, you don't have a ton of work with, and I don't know who's going to be your quarterback.
No one knows, man.
Kind of important. Pick you loved the most.
Oh, pick I love the most? Not being biased, obviously, is Jihad Campbell. But I'm going to go with Gray Zabel. I think it's a really, really good fit for what the Seahawks are trying to do.
Yeah. I was looking at that for a couple of reasons too. I'm going to say, I think I'm just proud of the Panthers for wanting to outfit Bryce Young with a weapon.
It's a good one.
And now, there's no excuses to be like, oh, there's nobody else there. Like, they're investing in a top 10 wide receiver. And I think he's going to be really interesting in best ball in a lot of ways. And also just shout out to the Browns. I think it's not the sexiest thing to get a defensive tackle and move down and not get Travis Hunter, but I think you're setting yourself up for life after Watson. And maybe they take Milroe. That would be really cool in day 2. So maybe the audio will age really, really well. Maybe it won't. Pick you hated the most.
Pick I hated. So obviously this could work out for any team, but I feel like Booker was just fine for the Cowboys. Like, doesn't move the needle, but fills a need, but 12 is very rich based off consensus, big board. So I'll say that, but if you get a starter in the league for, 8 years and he's your guy, it's obviously fine. But I thought they would do more based off the roster.
a guard is the least sexy position I think you could take.
Absolutely. Even a center's more sexy.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah, that one's not great. I don't love the Bengals pick of Stewart. I feel like you're projecting a lot for a team that I feel like needed a double.
But for us in fantasy and DFS, if their defense is terrible again, I wouldn't hate that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And then I'm going to be honest, sorry, Packers fans, but like we've been against Golden the whole time. The lowest targets per route run of any round one wide receiver since 2014. So like, name the worst wide receiver that's gone in round one. He's worse.
Also, the lowest yards per game in their best season since like 2016 in first round. Maybe the film people are right. I don't know. But the thing with the Packers, right? And sorry, I know we're being long-winded here. It's like, it's so tough to project because they want to rotate guys, but like, he's a first-round receiver. Does the Capitals say he'll be on the field every down? I don't know.
That's not their system.
Right. So who knows?
Man. So yeah, how does their rotation work with Dontavian Wicks? Does this mean that they hate Christian Watson or they regret it?
Well,
or they're
injury.
sick of waiting. Yeah, they're sick of waiting on it. We've always talked about Jaden Reed is never a full-time player. You still have Dobbs, who's in his final year. They're just, they rotate players way more than you think. And then when they get down in the red zone, they change up things too. So it's just a weird team to project when you go through pure plays per game, how they run their offense. Tucker Kraft in the red zone is actually kind of a big deal too. I like Tucker Kraft a lot, by the way. Just a weird team. So I would not have done that, but I'm just a guy, not in a basement, but I'm just a guy talking on a podcast. All right. Last question here. Give me a day two player you're most looking forward to.
So the easy answer for us is the running backs, Henderson, Judkins, Caleb Johnson, those guys. But I'm going to go with Milroe.
Oh, dude, that was going to be Milroe is so fascinating.
Again, like, could he have an NFL career that doesn't work out? Clearly, yes. Second-round quarterbacks rarely work. But for DFS, for fantasy, if he gets on the field, he's going to produce. So I'm excited to see where he goes and see if he has a real chance to get some starts under his belt as a rookie.
All right, I'm going to say, selfishly, Jalen Knoll, wide receiver at Iowa State, who's kind of been my guy over the last month that I've just said, like, I'm holding strong. I think he's the dude. I mean, anyway, I'm interested in his landing spot. I'm interested in Harold Fannin Jr. because I think he might end up being a day three player, but tight end at a Bowling Green. There's a lot of interesting storylines. So if you want to get in, Ballers have a live stream on Friday. We will have everything updated in the Dynasty Pass. Betz and I will be going to town talking about team opportunity reports, going through our risers and fallers. We'll have mock drafts and all that stuff. And then next week on this podcast, buckle up because we're going to be talking best ball. And I don't think people are ready for it. So Betz, tell everyone goodbye.
Yes, hope everybody had an awesome round one of the NFL draft. Of course, we got more going on this weekend, so enjoy that. And then, yeah, like you said, man, Best Ball Mania opens next week. Best Ball Summer is officially here. Let's go. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.